I'm a little giddy, but let's do this because I've got a 5-year-old to go pick up after school and I want to make apple crisp because we have some friends coming over for dinner. So I'm hoping that I can record this within the hour so I can go peel them apples and make a yummy apple crisp for our guests tonight. So let's do this, shall we? Welcome to the Awaken the Matriarch podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Collerette. It is such a pleasure to be with you today. I'm a lifestyle designer, transformational coach, author of the book that my mic is resting on, if you're watching the video version of this episode, Aspiring Mama. And I'm also a proud mama. And I'm so excited to dive into today because this entire podcast is all about helping you reclaim your power, share your gifts, and create a life that's in alignment with your true nature as a woman, and create a life that honors your seasons in life, but also working with the seasons out in nature. And I am going to share with you a little bit about the story that led me to creating my signature program, Matriarch, and give you an opportunity to go through the framework that I teach in the program to see if this is something that might be calling you. So I did a little meditation before diving into speaking. One, because I needed to ground myself because I was getting such a kick out of my setup today. I was wanting to do something a little different because I tend to sit very close to my desk. So I record my episodes in my dining room area because not only is the podcast available on audio, it's also available on YouTube. And I kind of love the background of my dining room area. Plus the lighting is fantastic. I've got a beautiful window in front of me, so natural lighting. And behind me, I've got this cool staircase with some books mostly, but because I used my Aspiring Mama books to prop up my mic to be a little higher to hopefully improve the sound quality, I I just kind of like changed up the view or the look of the show today. And, I'm kind of still getting back into the groove of recording episodes after taking the summer off mostly from the podcast. Actually, I took from May to August off unintentionally, but if you listen to previous episodes where I shared about my health journey, I needed to go inward and also use the summer energy as my medicine. And I really feel that that's what I deeply needed. And it's such a pleasure to get back into the recording groove. Needless to say, I had the intention of recording this one today to let you in a little bit about the journey of creating the Matriarch Program so that if you're at a crossroads in your life, and if you are feeling like you're almost in purgatory and you're not who you once were, yet aren't exactly sure who you are meant to be, this episode will give you light, and it will give you a soothing experience in a way where I hope you feel seen, because I'll let you in a little bit about my journey to creating this program, because I teach what I need. I've never led an experience that wouldn't be something that I needed or actually I took myself through, simply because that's the work I feel called to do. I mean, I've had male gynecologists before, so you can definitely do work where you are not going to be benefiting from the service that you provide. That's just not the way I roll. My coaching style is very much woven into the life I've led and the life I want to create. And I weave a tremendous amount of my experience into the programs I've created over the years. And Matriarch is definitely a really special one. And so let's just get into it. The upcoming program for the fall of 2025 starts September 30th. And it's kind of a last minute decision to run it. I had already set those dates back, I think, in the fall of 2024 for when I'd be leading the program for the following 12 months. But when I got my colon cancer diagnosis in early summer, I was like, whoa, what's happening? I put everything on hold. But since things were going smoothly and I kind of went through my own grieving process and acceptance, I was like, okay, I can't put my whole life on hold, even though there's still some uncertainty. And I will have a follow-up appointment at the beginning of October, which will kind of see how things are going I decided to go ahead and run it because I myself am also at a crossroads in my life. And this program is such an amazing experience to press the reset button and re-clarify who you are, what you really want, and step into the next version of yourself that is a truer reflection of who you're meant to be at this time in your life. We are constantly evolving beings. So who you are today will support the becoming of the next version of you in the next season in your life. And one of the reasons I felt so called to really expressing that this program was designed for women at crossroads, going through or having gone through major life transitions, is because of how significant certain periods of our life are, which mark these definitive moments where who you once were just can no longer be who you are becoming because of maybe a one moment event or something that has happened over time. And I'll give you a couple examples of that in my life. Becoming a mom. There was two layers to that. I think the journey to becoming a mom, which is why I wrote Aspiring Mama. I always knew I wanted to be a mom, but once I really committed to that journey and committed to embracing my desire for motherhood and stepped onto the path of aspiring motherhood, there was a turning point where it shifted in my way of being because I had to become the mother I dreamt of being in my day to day and start making decisions that were in alignment with my vision and not just keep it as a wish or a dream, but actually start embodying that and living as if what I desired was actually on its way to me or that was actually going to come through me in a way. And then becoming a mom, even though I had prepared myself for it, I do talk about this in the book, um, was a huge transition point in my life on every level, personally, professionally, in my relationship. And then weave into one of the main transitions that had an impact in the creation of the Matriarch Program was the separation between my daughter's father and I, which still remains one of the hardest things I've ever gone through in my life. And so that's kind of where the story starts about the birth and the conception of the Matriarch Program. So I always knew that becoming a mom would have an impact on the way that I showed up in the world and the work that I did. And when I stepped on the path of becoming a professional coach after having my own yoga studio, one of the things that was very clear to me is that I wanted to create a business that would support my desire for becoming a mom and not be something that felt I had to, or I didn't want motherhood to feel like it was second, because it isn't for me. Being a mom is like the best thing. It's also very hard, and I do really enjoy the work that I do, but there are the traditional model of work, which I felt was this constant like uphill climb and like this constant like going upward, didn't work for me because I just intuitively knew that motherhood would just change the pacing of my professional goals because my priorities would change. And I still struggle with that a little bit because I'm in my 40s and I feel there's like this, not competition, but sometimes this disconnect between where I'm at in my life as a woman and as a mom versus like where society might expect me to be professionally. I'm literally dealing with that on a legal level right now. My ex's lawyer sent me a letter talking about my capacities professionally. And I was like, girl, do you have kids? Because I don't think so. Anyway, let's not get too deeply into that. But I do feel women are expected to grow professionally at the same rate, regardless of what's happening in their life. And that just doesn't work for me. I'm all about expansion, but I'm also all about honoring the seasons of your life. And if you try to plant seeds in winter where I live, it's not going to work because the ground is frozen. There's snow over it. And I think I relate that to my life. There are periods where I'm in full bloom. I'm like, spring, let's do this. Other periods where I'm like, let's harvest. And then there are my winter seasons where it's like, I need to go inward, whether it's personally or professionally. Anyway, so this has had an impact on the way I showed up professionally and was really kind of mulling over what I wanted to do next after having my daughter. I took a year-long mat leave and I just felt this something coming around like motherhood being really central. I played around this idea of like create your motherhood. And then the idea for writing the Aspiring Mama book was really at the forefront of what I wanted to do. And then when I separated from my daughter's father, not right away, but a few months out, and once we moved into this home, which was probably around 6 months after we separated because we cohabitated for a period of time, and it took some time before I found a place to live. Okay, sorry. I don't know why that just kind of like made me lose my train of thought. I think maybe that's why I was feeling nervous about recording this episode is that I do feel it's important to share the story of how the program was born. And it feels like a lifetime ago, but it actually wasn't that long ago. And I'm like, wow, I'm such a different woman than I was back then. And I guess I'm just getting a flashback to, separating with a child that was under 2 years old, cohabitating for a couple months, and then stepping into solo parenting for about 6 months while looking for a place to live. And I feel that I started seeing the light a little bit when we moved into this house. And it's at that time that I also decided to get some support for my next step professionally and invested heavily in a coaching program that would really help me like build my business and or like not build my business. I already had a foundation, but I wanted to take it to the next level. And I just wasn't the same person. And I knew I needed that support because it's hard to show up on a good day sometimes. But it was even harder when I just wasn't sleeping all that great and was navigating a very stressful legal process and trying to be there for my daughter because she was my number one priority, but also stepping into the reality that I needed to provide. Like mama needed to fucking step up. And I still do. I still struggle with that because I'm like, damn, if my daughter wants to go to private school and like I want to take all these trips and actually buy a house, like I'm renting, but I'm still not where I ideally want to be financially. And I'm solo in this. Like I got to figure this out. I'm the adult in the room. And I know it's possible. And I've also had my challenges around that. So that being said, I knew that I wanted to create something that felt in alignment with my values as a woman and as a mother, and also create something that would provide tremendous support to the women in the world that I felt called to serve. And through all of this journey of like this unraveling of my dream life, really, because like, oh my gosh, like I thought I'd be like married and have more kids, and I was on that path, and I was like, yay. And then for that to completely shift, it's such an identity shift. It's a dream funeral that you weren't expecting to have. And I had to redefine who I was while also mourn a life that I thought I could have because it's just different. Like when you've separated and become a single mom, I was like, I had never first like thought about that as my identity. And for a long time, I resisted it. Now I'm like, well, we're kind of fucking badasses. Let's be real. And there are a lot of single moms out there in nature, but I feel I'm going all over the place. So let me recenter. And there is such a strong part of me right now that wants to stop and start from the beginning. But I'm going to let this episode be a little messier than I want it to be. Because one, I pressed record. And I want to go pick up my daughter I have to go pick her up on time. But if I start over, I'm not going to start over. I'm going to reset because I have about 30 minutes. Bear with me. And let's get back to our center, shall we? Oh my God. right, my friend. So here we go. Um, Creation of the Matriarch Program. So as I was rebuilding my life and working with a business coach and part of this great group community of like very driven entrepreneurs, mostly women, um, I feel so unorganized right now. Okay. All right. Okay, my friend. I need a minute to recenter. And I feel this goes against like podcasting in general, but I'm going to see this as potentially you also experience this at times. And I feel I must have connected to something as I was sharing that stirred up some triggers and had me maybe feel a little scattered. So we're actually going to awaken the matriarch within together because I think I kind of disconnected from my own inner matriarch as I was starting this episode. If you're watching on YouTube, you obviously see that my eyes are closed. If you're listening to the audio, I just decided to close my eyes to take a moment because the nervous part of me was like, abort, abort, press pause, stop the recording, re-record. The practical side of me was like, shit, you're running out of time. It's 2:47 p.m. and you want to wrap up by 3:30 so that you have a moment to transition before going to pick up your beautiful daughter. And then the matriarch inside of me, what she's saying is take a minute, take a deep breath. It's okay. Let it be messy. And also give yourself permission to pause. What was recorded was probably exactly what was needed. And now we have about 40 minutes together where we can really connect to our inner matriarchs, the wild, wise, powerful woman within, and share from that place, from that truth. And let go of feeling as if you need to show up a certain way. And let go this pressure you feel to have everything figured out. You can awaken the matriarch within and still be working on stuff and still not know every little thing about your life. It's okay to be human because that's what you are here as in this lifetime. So take a moment to acknowledge everything that has brought you to this very moment. To this very moment right now where I am recording a podcast and you are here with me, listening or watching. My inner matriarch is like, girl, it's been a lot. And the emotion that's coming up is nothing to be ashamed of because it's everything that you have experienced that has awakened the call to support women on their journey, to support women in awakening the matriarchs within themselves. Because committing to creating and experiencing life fully, man, that takes courage. Because although the maiden in you declared that years ago, and she declared it from a place of a little bit of ignorance, that's okay. you thought experiencing life fully meant that it would be mostly unicorns and rainbows and Prince Charming kneeling down, asking you to marry him as Travis Kelce asked Taylor Swift recently. Not that that may not happen, but let's be real. It might look different. You've experienced life fully, the ups, the downs, and have committed to being a source of love and light in this world because you know what darkness feels like. And you also know when love is not present. But your wisdom has also taught you that you can always be the source of the love and the light that you need and that the world needs. And right here, right now, as we record this episode to share about the creation of this beautiful journey called Matriarch, there is an opportunity to gather women around this proverbial fire that we've created through the podcast and light their inner flames. So take a moment to feel your inner fire igniting. If you're listening or watching, I invite you to place your hands on your belly if you can, or the part of your body where you feel your fire awakened or where you feel it needs to be. And can you take a moment to acknowledge exactly where you are in your life right now? Can you acknowledge everything you've experienced? Can you have compassion for the aspects of your life that you're still working on? Things that might be difficult to accept, maybe parts of you or of others. Can you be willing to allow love to lead the way today and to choose pleasure over pressure and to show up as yourself? Let's continue, shall we? Woo! Okay. I wasn't expecting that. And I think what was coming up is that this desire in me of wanting this episode to be really good. And the business part of me was like, I hope it's so good that she's like, I can't wait to join the fucking next Matriarch program and click link, enroll, boom. I'm not gonna lie. That is 100% was in the back of my mind. I want to share so um freely. And I think talking about like being the mom who needs to provide, who's running her coaching business and the ups and downs that has entailed, I think brought that up for me as I started sharing the story. Um, Knowing that there's a round of Matriarch starting at the end of September, I didn't take much time to market it. And that's so difficult to accept sometimes because I'm doing what I can within the time frame I've allocated to opening up the doors to the next round and trying to disconnect from, the business side of things, the bottom line of things, and focus solely on like the mission and the message that Matriarch represents and the transformation that's possible for women when they step into it. But I gotta call myself out that there was this moment, I think, that was awakening of like, oh, it's not going as you should. You should not share your story this way. So thank you for pausing with me. And let's just see how the rest of the conversation goes. Because there will be more episodes, but you know what? I think it was important to maybe just go there, you know? Because part of me leading the Matriarch program and creating it is that I am constantly needing to reconnect to that version of myself. Because I want to fully embody the wise, wild, powerful woman within me. And there are moments where I'm not that. There are moments where I'm scared and I feel so much doubt and I feel overcome by emotion. And all of these things, when I'm in my matriarch essence, can be there. But I feel when I'm really rooted in my own power, they're not the ones that make the decision. Those emotions don't necessarily take over my bodily reactions. But the fact of the matter is that I also know, and even just this morning, I received an email that had me fully triggered. And I was like, this is not how I want to be focusing my energy this morning. I was feeling pulled by other people's requests of me instead of really coming back to my center. And it took me some time. And I think probably up until this moment where in the middle of the recording, I was like, we got to pause this. Okay. So it's a practice for me. And I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to share it with you and let other women in on the possibility of the practice of awakening the matriarch within on a day-to-day basis, whether it's from listening to this podcast or joining the Matriarch Program, or maybe downloading the 6 journal prompts that I've created for you, or just following my journey on social media, or however way you feel called. You might feel called to going on a pilgrimage where your ancestors are from and awakening your matriarch there. There isn't just a one path thing. And for me, I realized this is like a lifetime journey, because that is who I want to continue embodying, at least as I continue aging, but also expanding my wisdom and stepping more fully into my power. And also exploring, like, what does that mean? And what does it mean to be the matriarch of my life? What does it mean to be the matriarch of my family and the family that I wish to continue expanding into? What does it mean to be the matriarch of this movement and of the work that I feel called to do in the world? And these are the kinds of questions that are awakened inside of you when you are part of the Matriarch Program, and maybe even just through listening here. So one thing I want to share about the creation of the program is I was really reflecting on some of the key tools that hadn't gone out of style, even though I was coming up to 10 years as a professional coach, while also bringing into this passion I have for motherhood, but also this interest in feminine cycles and nature's rhythms that I hadn't always directly woven into my work, but I had started really diving more into the impact of the patriarchal system that we were brought up in, the difference between feminine and masculine energies, but also like female male biology. And then I also felt deeply connected to the women that had come before me, the women I was on this planet with, my daughter's generation, and future generations. I never felt more connected while I was going through such a difficult period of my life, specifically to my maternal line. My grandmother, whose beautiful photo is hanging on the wall right ahead of me here. And I really felt a desire to honor the women who came before me, but also step more fully into honoring who I am and make myself proud. And then from that place, be a role model for my daughter to the best of my ability, in hope that the life I lead today plays an impact or has some sort of impact on her life and maybe other people's lives, so that I can have, or I can at least feel that, once I take my last breath, I did the best I could to restore harmony on the planet, or to make my contribution in however way it felt most true. I don't want to make a contribution that feels like it's someone else's like expectation of my own. I actually want to connect and be like, what kind of contribution am I here to make? If I relate this to an example from nature, and this is from Kyle Cease, I had years ago a participant of one of my workshops. Actually, it was the Inspire and Empower workshop, which was like my launch workshop into the coaching world that combined yoga and coaching. And he had sent me this video from Kyle Cease that talked about being an apple tree. And he's like, be an apple tree. He's like, an apple tree doesn't try to be a pear tree or something else. And an apple tree is also there to just give. Like, it's not, keeping score. It's just being itself. And that in and of itself is such a beautiful thing. And so what I'm relating to, like making myself proud and making the contribution that I feel called to make, it's like, I want to be my own, like the apple tree I'm here to make. I don't want to feel like I have to be a different type of thing than I am, but I also want to continue making room for that truth to come up. And there's still some work to do around that. So there was something around connecting to my maternal line and generations that I was living with, but also that would come after, that seemed to like awaken my resonance with the term matriarch. And I felt really pulled, and I was starting to see it in different places, and it would like make me pause. And I was like, what is it about matriarch? And I landed on calling this program Matriarch because of what I felt it represented. And I remember I was walking on the bike path very close to here, and it was on a day where I had signed a co-parenting agreement, a temporary one. So it was an emotionally charged day, but I also was in a creative space. And there's a lot of power when you're vulnerable and your creativity. It's amazing what can come through. And I was like, this is it. And it was like, I had this clarity around the program, the name, the unraveling of it. Now, here we are a few years later. I ran the first program in the summer of 2023 with a group of beautiful women who trusted me to guide them on this journey that turns out to be this soul awakening and initiation far beyond the practical results that I talk about you will get from the experience, which is, resetting your focus on a core project or goal that really lines up with who you want to be and want in your life, and also restructuring the way you spend your time in a way that honors the season in life that you're in, but also allows you to create a container for your feminine creativity and expression to flow. But this program also became the sisterhood. It became this space for deep healing and a new expression for women beyond these practical results that often, lure people in, if I'm being honest. A lot of people are like, yeah, great, a program is going to help me start a business, or it's going to like help me, most of the time is that like figure out my next career move, but it's so much more than that. So here's the framework of the Matriarch Program. It's at its core has 3 pillars. The first one being creating fertile ground. And I'll talk a little bit more about what that means. Next is a new way being. And then thirdly, taking aligned action. So these 3 pillars are woven throughout the experience. The program itself is run over a period of 10 weeks. And every week we dive into one of the key themes and steps that are under each of these pillars that in its entirety allow you to do a full life reset, to reconnect to who you really are, what you really want, start bridging the gap between where you're starting from and where you want to be by putting some things in place for you to actually get things done, aka boundaries, but also stepping into a version of yourself that you want to be. So under the creating fertile ground, and in that essence here, it's like you're tending to the soil. You're preparing the space. You're preparing for the transformation you want to experience in your life. And we do this through 3 steps. First is creating sacred space. And what I mean by that is that 1, you must make a decision. You must make a decision that you want things to change. And it starts by like seeing the beauty in that, seeing the divinity in your desires, seeing that the change you want is worthwhile. And to support that by literally making changes in your environment. I have a client, who has created like an altar in she had a tiny home at the time when we were working together, and she created a little tiny sacred space for her entrepreneurial venture. And that space represented what is now a beautiful brand. And actually, you can go check out the episode I have with Emily Delorier that shares her story. I'll link it in the show notes. And in the creating sacred space, there's also like make in the creating sacred space, part of that is in the container that I hold with the Matriarch program, like being part of this experience for 10 weeks with women who will no doubt inspire the shit out of you is something that I treat as sacred. And so I ask participants to come to our calls and come to the experience, like really honoring the sanctity of the energy that we are moving for the 10 weeks that we're together, because it's going to have impact far beyond the 10 weeks we have together. So that for me as the guide is huge, because it's so important for me to create a space where women feel safe, where women feel seen and heard and can express themselves. And I know that has been a lot of my work as a coach and as a woman. And I think it's something I've developed over time. But I'll give you an example of what this looks like. I have a new client that I'm meeting tomorrow morning. And we had a quick call last week to see if it might be the right fit to start working together. And within 5 minutes, I kid you not, because I looked at my phone, she said to me, I haven't told this to anyone. And she's like, I've done everything. I've worked with therapists. I've done it all. And I haven't been able to open up to someone. And within 5 minutes, she shared with me something that has been weighing on her tremendously. And that is not something I take for granted, because I know there is something about who I've become and stand for as a coach, and in terms of my desire for women to feel safe, that led her to opening up in such a vulnerable way in such a small amount of time. And that happens in the Matriarch program. If that can happen in 5 minutes on a call with someone who's never met me, imagine what's possible when you're in a space like that for 10 weeks. Doesn't mean that every single call we have, you're going to reveal, your deepest, darkest secrets. That's not the intention. But you may reveal to yourself who you really are simply because of the energy that is awakened in the space that we hold in the Matriarch program. So that is part of the creating fertile ground, and it is at the essence, and it is the through line in the entire experience. From there, we really look at starting where you are. This is such an important message and step on your journey to your next expression. You cannot start anywhere else than where you are right now. And so we look at that more intentionally and seeing like what's going on in your life. Let's get clear, not so that we can root you deeper into where you are, but to support you in really creating a roadmap for your life that works based on where you're at, because people need individualized protocols because they have unique paths and unique things that brought them to where they are right now. So these are things that we look at in the program from the beginning, but also within the different exercises that I walk you through. And one of the key elements in the creating fertile ground, which in a way you kind of got a taste of when I had my little moment recording the episode, is cultivating resilience. One of my favorite sessions to lead is the release ceremony. It's a bonus experience, but one of the things I felt was missing in the coaching space was kind of this division between like goal setting and creating a life you love and like business development or goal attainment and therapeutic approaches to healing work. Trauma work has become, I think, more and more spoken about, but where is that experience actually being guided in group or individual programs? And I definitely wove it into the Matriarch program because I felt it didn't work to keep those things separate. And I've worked with many coaches and actually that business program I had been a part of that helped me like create the foundation for the Matriarch program was wonderful, but I felt there was such a lack of emotional support that it was more about like, how can we get you further faster, but let's not process the emotional limitations that are in your way. And I found that difficult because I was going through some hard stuff in my life. And sure, you can't go through the Matriarch program won't become a replacement for therapy. However, I do think it's important to acknowledge and to just give people space to release what's not serving them. And that's part of the cultivating resilience approach, because I don't want to bypass the stuff you might be going through. And it also, I feel, once we do that, it allows you to move more closely to shining your light brighter in the world. So that is one of the pillars, or one of the steps within the creating fertile ground. So we need to like shake some things off, quite literally, create sacred space within the container of the program, but also in your life, and help you start where you are. We also can go deeper into this through like your nutrition, your relationships, where you spend your time. These are all things we talk about in the program for you to create sacred space within yourself. Because if you're only eating shit, or you're not sleeping well, you're not taking care of yourself, you're not speaking up, then we're going to need to clean that up in your life for you to blossom as you would a garden. You're not going to let the weeds just stay there if you want beautiful roses to bloom. So part of this like creating sacred space is woven into the other elements that we look at. And then when we step into this new way of being, this is where we really look at like your desires. What do you want? What's the vision that is next for you? And who are you going to be to make that happen? So we step into possibility, which is all about awakening dreams and desires and making room for that to be a really playful and fun experience. Because one of the things that I have found is in myself and in my clients is this fear of dreaming. Maybe because you've experienced disappointment. And if you're interested in personal development, I feel there is an emphasis on like dreams that have become realized, because that's very inspiring to people. And I've realized some things that felt big to me, but there's also dreams that I set for myself that I didn't accomplish. And I felt there was like a lack of acknowledgement of that, because I was like, every person I've worked with, like, we're all a little messed up. We're all humans. Like, we've got our shit. And it's so nice to see all the ways that you've succeeded. But can we also talk about maybe this challenging part? Anyway, I like to keep it real. But in stepping in possibility, it's about reconnecting to what lights you up. What are your desires? And what I have found when you're going through a major life transition, you're rediscovering. Whether it's a change of a decade, maybe turning 30, maybe turning 40, maybe turning 50, there might be a shift in terms of like, ooh, what do I really want? Who do I want to be? What lights me up now? Because maybe in your 20s, you were like, let's go backpacking around Europe for 6 months. That sounds great. And at 50, you're like, 5-star hotel in Capri, please. Like, what is it that you want? So we look at that. And part of designing your life is becoming the architect of your life and seeing what feels inspiring to you, what feels energizing for you. And sometimes what can be surprising in that work is that it's not so much about these big shiny things that might look good on the outside, but about these little things that feels deeply nourishing on the inside. Maybe what really lights you up is a nap in the afternoon with your husband while the kids are at school, and you want to create space in your life for that to be a possibility. Or maybe what would really light you up is spending a weekend with your mom at your grandfather's house where she grew up once a year, just for you and her to have quality time. Maybe what would light you up is waking up at 6:15 to have 10 minutes to paint one of the flowers you're inspired by, or look at the flowers in your garden. Or maybe one of the things that would feel really good is to set the table and for the family to have dinner together without their cell phones 5 nights a week, 7 nights a week if you're going for all of it, whatever it is. These are random examples that are literally coming out just as I'm speaking here. From stepping into possibility, one, it's literally like reawakening that muscle. And that's one of the comments that one of the participants had said in one of the rounds of the program. She's like, whoa, like, you're giving me permission to play again and permission to dream. And I haven't done that. And I'm always blown away, because I'm such a like creative dreamer. And this is the work I do. I help people create their dreams and their visions and bring them to life. And so it's such an honor when I get to create space for someone to reconnect to that. And so that's something that might be missing in your life. And I'll show you how to reconnect to that. From there, creating a new vision for your life. I truly believe having a vision for your life, it doesn't have to be like 10 years down the line. It might be, but it might be for the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. Having something that you look forward to, something that feels inspiring to you, lights this little fire inside and maybe under your ass to make some changes. And when people craft an inspiring vision for your life and have a coach to help them look at it from a different perspective, we can extract like who they must be for that vision to become a reality. One of the coaching tips I got from a writing coach when I was part of a writing program called the Author Incubator, which helped me write a different manuscript than the Aspiring Mama one. But she would say, like, be the author that you think you're going to be after you've written your book. Like, be that version of yourself now. There's also a book by Dr. Benjamin Hardy that exists. I haven't read or listened to it, but I've read and listened to other of his books, such as 10X is Easier Than 2X with Dan Sullivan. But one of his books is called like Be Them Now, or like Be Your Future Self Now, which is one of the tenets of the Matriarch Program. Is like, in creating your vision, you are going to see, well, who do I need to be now? Like, if you want to run your own business, if you want to vacation in Capri in a 5-star hotel, or if you want to be a stay-at-home mom, yet you're like in corporate in London, single, and not on a homestead as you're envisioning, what version of yourself must you awaken today, which will guide you to that path? So having a future self vision really helps you become present, because when you're inspired by what you're moving towards, it helps clarify what you must focus on. And that's what leads us to this next step in the A New Way of Being section, is awakening the matriarch within. And this is where we get into the nitty-gritty of setting a new foundation for who you are in your life by looking at what are your values? Like, what are the pillars upon which you're going to build your life in order to fulfill the vision that you're calling in? And how are you going to live by those? Quite literally. And what does this mean? You know, maybe health is one of your core values. What does that mean to you? Not to a UFC fighter or an Olympic athlete. What does it mean to you at this time? And getting clear on that. That one exercise in and of itself, it can be so game changing, because you might see like, oh shit, I am not living in accordance to my values. Instead, I'm living in accordance to outdated values from a system that wasn't designed with my well-being or joy at hand. We also look at where you need to set and enforce boundaries to protect your peace, where you need to use your voice and speak up. These are themes that come up throughout the program. And a big part of the work is often like sharing your truth. And for a lot of women, we have fear around that. And we talk a little bit about epigenetics and how there's some energies that might not literally be ours, but we might be carrying from generations past or trauma past. And how can we start breaking those patterns by awakening the matriarch within ourselves? And then we also look at like, how can you appropriate like who you're wanting to be by becoming her now? I love this section. It's so much fun. When we look into taking an aligned action, we start by really owning in on a core focal point. What's one area you really want to focus on in your life? And we start by doing that by looking at your life more globally and seeing like which area of your life must you focus on and create some sort of project around or within in order to build momentum towards the life that you want. A lot of people will come into the program having an idea. Some have no idea, and that's fine. And what we realize is, say you might be in a career transition and you want to level up your career. But when we look at your life holistically, what we notice is that you either need to take charge of your health, or you need to clean up this toxic relationship you've been in and out of, or you need to call in your partner, or you need to prioritize your finances. And sometimes someone comes in with a different, more of a personal optic, and we realize, well, we actually might want to start that business you've been talking about throughout our time together. It's amazing. Like, things can come through that are really surprising. One participant, Christa Russo, and I'll share a little clip about her experience. I also did an interview with her, which I'll share in the show notes. She came to level up her coaching business. I've had the honor of being her coach on and off over the years and helped her become a coach years ago. And when she joined the Matriarch program, she was like, I want to create this experience for women and like create a new coaching program. And I'm going to use the Matriarch to help me design that. And what was coming through whenever we were doing the vision work was her vision of being with her partner, being pregnant, living on a homestead. And I helped her see and guide her to create her life to support that vision. Because I was like, every time we were doing vision work, the coaching program wasn't coming up. I'm like, you're never talking about it unless we're getting in your head. But when it's from your heart, when it's from your soul, what you're seeing is you becoming a mom in a loving partnership, building a homestead. Let's focus on that. And that's what we did.
Setting out on that journey, and it was a couple days later, maybe like 2 or 3 days later, I found out I was pregnant.
Wow.
Yeah, and so it was very much, I feel like, this divine cocoon in every essence, and you truly were like such a large piece of that. You were the guide that allowed it to crack open. I really believe it was through those steps and removing that resistance and like stepping into this work that opened up that space within myself to receive. I don't know if I didn't do that program, if I would have had a baby. Like, I really think that was the cocoon that allowed myself to have that. So
Wow.
thank you.
Oh, that's amazing. And I mean, you did the work, and you showed up. It takes a lot of courage to say yes to these experiences, because often when a program like this comes into someone's life, as exciting as it might look, most of the time we say yes because there is something deeper that we're wanting to experience, and
Mhm.
that it can be a defining moment in our lives. And so it takes a lot of courage. So I really want to acknowledge you for that, because you were like you there's a part of us that knows, like, you're like, something's going to happen, but there's a lot of unknown. And even me as the guide, like, I've created this framework knowing very well that there's greater magic that happens because of the container that's created that isn't in my control. I'm there to facilitate and allow that to happen, or at least that's part of my philosophy as a coach, is that I'm not just here to like dictate a result, um, but like co-create it with you and everyone else, but also with these bigger forces that are at play. And I was just checking her out on Instagram stories today. Her and her fiance were taking their 1-year-old on her first van trip, because she also bought her dream van while participating in the Matriarch program. It's amazing. And also, that coaching program, she did create it after having her baby. So, what's possible may surprise you. It definitely will. And we need to help you, build around a central focus just to help you with your energy and your priorities. And that focus might change, but for a period of time, it might be one thing. And then you'll have a framework you can come back to when it moves on to another thing. From there, I teach a soulful productivity philosophy, which in the last episode of the Awaken the Matriarch podcast, I walk you through the 8 tenets of the soulful productivity technique that I teach in Matriarch, which really helps you create a structure for your life, for you to do the things that will support you in the realization of what you want, by also prioritizing your state of being. Like, who are you being in the doing? But also take responsibility for your life, have some fun, and leave plenty of room for rest and play, and actually weave that into your everyday and honor the seasons out of nature, the seasons in your life. This is something that comes up over and over again, because most of the women who join Matriarch are driven. They've accomplished a lot. They want to accomplish more. And I get it. There's so much more I want to do in my life, but I don't want it to happen all at once. That gets so overwhelming. And trusting the timing of our life is so important. It's actually something that becomes such a beautiful, I think, realization when you give yourself permission to create space in your life. And the Matriarch program will help you do that. So those are the steps I take you through in the Matriarch program. Through it all, you'll have a clear plan and support to take action on the realization of that plan. But most importantly, you will have a new connection to who you are, what matters to you, and tools to help you protect that and stand for that. Because one of the things that I see brings people backwards is feeling inspired by a new way of being, but not putting things in place that are often uncomfortable in order to teach people around you who you are and what you're committed to at this time in your life. And it takes practice. People will challenge you, often those closest to you. So if you're at a stage in your life where you want to revisit what feels most important to you and you want to be part of an experience where other women are walking this path with you, the group version of the Matriarch Program is definitely something you should consider, whether it be for this round that starts at the end of September or for one upcoming program in the future. Now, I also lead the program one-on-one for those who want a more intimate experience or for those that the group calls doesn't work. There's people from different parts of the world that I get to work with, but if you're in Australia, chances are the group calls at 2 p.m. Eastern aren't going to work for you. And as much as I want to make as many time zones work, I have found that either there's like a couple time slots that tend to work for 3 out of the 4 time zones that I tend to coach people in: Eastern, PST, in Europe, and Australia. It's hard to find one that works for everybody because eventually one person's going to be waking up at 4 a.m. That's just, and if you want to do that, then amen. You go, girl. I've done that for programs where I'm like, okay, I'm staying up for this. But if that's the case for you, if that doesn't feel workable or manageable for you, then we could definitely look at going through the experience one-on-one. And there's something about following the structure, going through the exercise, trusting in the timing and the unfolding that really creates a beautiful flow and rhythm instead of feeling like everything has to happen all at once. And that's something I feel, we're kind of challenged in our society to like get more done faster, get bigger results. And I actually was talking to a potential coach or a coaching company I was looking at working with, and they were all about the like, let's go like faster, like let's get you ahead. And I was like, okay, I just got this diagnosis. I think I'm going to just chill for now. And I had to like push back against it. And I was like, okay, I see what you're doing. I know what sales are like, and I'm all about it. I mean, listen, this podcast episode does have the possibility of generating sales if you're feeling inspired by joining the Matriarch Program and being led and guided by me. But I am not going to force you into this if you're not feeling inspired or called to. And if you're going through a major life transition, like if you're in it, like if you just got a health diagnosis, you might be like, I want to be part of this. I need that container. But there might be like your inner matriarch saying like, oh, you need to take 3 months at the cabin with your family and then reevaluate. I totally get that. Now, I also was a yoga teacher. Shavasana is important. So I think it's important to trust the timing in your life. That being said, if you're someone who tends to put things off and not necessarily invest in yourself because you're like, oh, I got to do this and like this kitchen renovation and like my kids have that, maybe it's time that you put yourself first. But inside, I've enrolled in so many coaching experiences and no one has ever like pressured me. Like I had this gut feeling when different programs came into my life that was like, I need to do this. Most of the time it wasn't because it made sense, but because it felt like a pull and it felt like an invitation that I couldn't refuse, even though a big rational part of me often did. One of my coaches often says like the reason why you say you can is the reason why you must. And I do abide to that to a certain degree. I also feel sometimes that like you have to, it might just not be the right time. Like if you're going through another personal development course right now, it might conflict. We can discuss that if you're uncertain. But I think it's really nice to savor, an experience instead of try to do them all at once. And to get honest with yourself and see like, okay, am I avoiding investing in myself and like taking the plunge? Because the thing is, whether it's the Matriarch Program or something else, I think you like, there are I'm not of the belief that you need to have a coach with you all the time. I think it's good to have moments where there's just like white space and you're just with yourself. I'm like that. Like I'll go without working with someone for a period of time. And then I'm like, okay, no, I need this either to work back with someone I've worked with or find a new mentor during this chapter of my life. So you do what works for you. Some people have coaches nonstop and that works for them. I think you need to find your groove. But that being said, I think it's important to get the support you need, And if it's not with me, then go find your person, your people. I've invested in programs where I was like, okay, maybe you're not my people. I was in a 1-year container that was really great, but I was like, this isn't my vibe. So I got like so much from it. I still go back to the tools, but I was like, I think I'm done with the membership. Like I was like, I'm good. Thanks. Maybe I'll come back 5 years from now. Who knows? So I think it's important for you to look and seek out your people. And if this is coming your way, maybe I am your people. Um, and if I'm not, that's okay. If anything, I hope that this also just like helps you connect to your inner matriarch. And like she is beautiful and is worth tending to and getting curious about. And one easy way to get started on that is the 6 journal prompts that I've created to help you awaken the matriarch within. So I'll leave those in the show notes. And if you are curious about the Matriarch Program, you can find out more by clicking the link below. If you're ready to enroll, enrollment is open, depending on when you're listening to this. But if you're listening to this the week this episode is released, before September 30th, enrollment's open. And if you're listening to this after the fall program has begun, you might want to put yourself on the waiting list for upcoming programs or explore working through the program in a one-on-one way. Sound good? I'm going to say yes. This sounds fabulous. So with that, I want to thank you so much for being here today. This was kind of a unique episode. I'm really curious to see how it's going to turn out once I do the edits and roll through it again. But I hope that you've enjoyed spending some time with me. I'm so grateful for everyone who tunes in. And if this inspired you in any way, please share it with a friend. Share the show, share the episode. Such a great way to grow the audience of the podcast, but then also to let people in on the work that I do that might support them. So if you have someone who you feel might benefit from awakening the matriarch within themselves, then please share this with them. And if you have any questions or insights from this episode, you can leave them in the comments or send me a DM on my personal or professional account at Awaken the Matriarch or at Melissa Collerette. And I look forward to hearing from you. I wish you a beautiful day. Hope to see you inside of Matriarch this fall. And if not, in upcoming programs. I love you. I'll see you soon.